Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Greetings, race fans, and welcome to Apex Racing TV's presentation of the Radical Racing Challenge. J.R. Gregory here on the call beside me in the booth as usual, racing Ron Mounds and our production carrier Joshua Wilkie. Week 10 of the Radical Racing Challenge takes us to one of my favorite tracks, Bathurst, and one of the most difficult tracks that is on the iRacing service, and in the opinion of many, including yours truly. Bathurst has an 85-year history of racing in Mount Panorama, Eastern Australia. Technically a street circuit. These are all public roads when the racing is not going on, and there are actually some residences, I understand, that can only be reached by driving on the track. So when that lottery win comes in, you can look for my address to be on Skyline Drive. 23 turns, 3.8 miles, 6.2 kilometer track, an elevation change of 174 meters or 571 feet. It seems much more dramatic on the track, but that is about the elevation change that we see at Laguna Seca here stateside. And Mount Panorama, of course, famously hosts to Australian supercars, the yearly 12-hour endurance race, and many other events. Ron, we got to have a little fun out here this afternoon. You, me, and Josh put some laps down on Bathurst. I think we learned a couple of things. One is that the old man among us is the slowest. I'm not naming names, but it was myself, and Josh kicked both of our butts pretty solidly. Couple of trouble spots here, though, for these radicals that I noticed. What are you anticipating out of this race today?
Oh yeah, I think there's definitely going to be a lot of drivers definitely annoyed, I would say, by the end of tonight. There's, as you mentioned, quite a few trouble spots, one of them being Force Elbow, where I struggled on. I know, JR, you struggled on, because I saw you spinning ahead of me a few times during our practice adventures earlier this afternoon, and I think one thing that we might see a little bit of is just general terror from some of these drivers on their first lap, certainly here in qualifying, where these drivers only have 2 laps to put down absolute grease or to try and grab the pole position here. So these drivers, you can just see them wrestling the cars. From our experience, I know Joshua said it when we were talking earlier, how this car doesn't really get into a groove until you hit around lap 3 or 4. So to get a really good lap in only 2 qualifying laps is really tricky for these drivers in this session.
Yeah, it is for sure. And wow, Preston putting down a heater at 158.9. That looks like it might have been his first lap. So Corey Preston driving out of, looks like that's an Australian or New Zealand flag there. Apologies if I'm getting that. Apologies if I'm getting that wrong in some way, but yeah, the hometown driver is putting on an absolute clinic so far in qualifying. And Ron, yeah, you're right that there are a couple of trouble spots here. Forest Elbow is definitely one of them, getting the car slowed for that corner. And it also seemed like the Radical was having a hard time putting the power down in a couple of spots, particularly. If I get my track map out here, just for a quick reference. Yeah, that after the cutting, that tight second gear left-hander going up through Quarry Corner, very bumpy, and the car was quite unsettled there. Yeah, even after the tires had warmed up. So we've got to see some incidents here. I'm quite sure. And something else that we might see that we haven't seen so far this season, we may see lapped traffic, and we really haven't seen much of that this time, but we've got a single split here today. We have a pretty wide range of iRatings. There's one driver that's below 1,000 and one driver that is close to 6K in rating. So between incidents and pace differences among the field, we may see some clogs due to back markers, which could present some unique challenges for the drivers up front.
Well, you mentioned one thing that'll definitely play a pretty big hand in tonight's race, I feel, and that is definitely going to be incidents. I believe here last season, of course, this car drove wildly worse last season than it has this season. Thank you to the other people at iRacing for finally fixing this car for this season. It's put on some fantastic racing, but even then, with the fixes that this car has had between last season and now, I think there's still definitely going to be a lot of incidents, as you mentioned, and as I mentioned. Certainly a few trouble spots. One of the trouble spots, for me at least, was these final three corners here, going off the Conrad straightaway, going through the chase and going into the chicane there, and especially here at the final corner, Murray's corner, I had trouble pulling the power down and kept hitting the curb on the outside, and I felt like I was driving over a rock. So I think that might be one of the many trouble spots for tonight's race.
Yeah, that was a tough spot for sure, and I think that corner struck me as maybe a little off camber, and that made it kind of difficult to find your braking zone. And so here is our grid. Corey Preston, who I don't believe is a familiar name here for our broadcast, gets the pole, 158.5. Next to him, Kike Ming. Philip Vanderherk will be in P3. Mladen next to him in P4. Vitorino and Sanchez behind them in row 3. Kiriopoulos and Kim Bjorklund, who we've seen quite a bit this year, will be 7 and 8. Rodriguez and Al Amri, who had a great run at our last outing. And behind them, White and Andreas Friedrich, who is sitting in the season top 10 at number 2 currently.
A lot of drivers in this field. You can see 24 drivers right now. So you look through the grid now. Hesterman, Gonzaga, Bobber, sorry if I mispronounced that name, Iglesias in 16th, Gregory, your brother there from Ireland or the UK. I'm not sure which country he's from. He's in 17th. And we have Kinsley in 18th, Barada in 19th, the lowest iRating driver in the field, and Baba, Mauricio W., Jim Wallen, and then Samuel Ma and Daniel Bonowitz running at your field.
Oh my goodness, and look at Baba back in P20. Keep an eye on him, folks. He is a top 10 driver. He may have chosen to bag qualifying or may have had a problem unable to put a time down, but Baba is going to be blowing through this field, which is an uphill battle here at Bathurst. It's not an easy place to pick through traffic, so Baba has his work cut out for him if he's going to work his way up to the front where we normally see him. Looking at Preston now, he will have the inside line into turn 1. It's a standing start, icy cold tires, and 500 and some odd horsepower without traction control. So these cars are a handful, and here we go. It is a green flag, and Preston looks like he's going to get off clean. Ming from Vanderherk, Vitorino, and Mladen. Not many changes here in the top 5. So far, clean through turn 1 on their first run. On their first run up toward Griffins. Very clean start this time.
Yeah, very clean start. I believe last year we had a pile-up towards the start. Certainly many corners to go here. They're only one turn into a 24-corner first lap here. Some shuffling all throughout the field. but so far no drivers dropping back, no real incidents. So we see some drivers going side by side there. That's very close between a few drivers up towards the front. Right now we're following a whole bunch of drivers battling all throughout the field. Certainly this man, Kike Ming, is having to hold off a challenge from Philip Vanden Herk behind him, and then trying to battle with Preston up ahead. But I believe his main pressing issue at this point is trying to hold off Herc and hold on to that second position as we're about halfway through the first lap.
Yeah, fantastic start from these drivers, and I gotta say, to get through Griffin's Bend, and again, that slow left-hander, the cutting up over Quarry Corner, very bumpy. The car gets very light there, and these drivers handled it like a bunch of professionals, looking really, really good here. I only saw one person really slipping in the standings on the start. That was Rodriguez. Looked like he overcooked the entry to Griffin's, leaving the inside open, and a couple people slipped through and got him. So he has dropped 3 positions so far, going down from 9 to 12 here in the early going.
Yeah, he is the biggest driver to lose position so far. The man you mentioned earlier, and Ennio Baba, has actually gained the most positions right now. He's already up to P16. He's moved up 4 positions, actually 5 now, as he just got past Bober now for 15th. Actually, yeah, that is 15th, and now he just got re-overtaken. So what we might see a lot of is drivers shuffling quite a lot. You can see a lot of shuffling going on behind. Baba is losing multiple positions now. He's down to 17th, so I think that tussle he had there with Bober might have cost him a bit of time there, but he is still running in a pretty decent position. Oh, there's some smoke there. I believe we have a spinner coming out of the final corner. I'm not sure what happened there. That might have just been a driver lighting up the tires coming out of the final corner. A nice flash there. Actually, no, I believe it was a driver spinning around. I believe that's Dennis Karakopoulos, who is now towed back to the pits. As you can see, he's dropped down the running order. We have some more drivers dropping down the running order. Mladen and Hesterman have dropped back a lot of positions. Barati is now towed back to the pits, so some chaos throughout this field right at the end of the first lap. But right now, a lot of drivers going side by side here. They're nearly going 3 wide there.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, that's contact. That's a lot of contact there as he went down the mountain straight away into Quarry.
My cousin Craig there being a little rough on the entry to Griffin's. And my goodness, and we also saw some issues, out of turn 1. There's Karakopoulos falling back. I'm not sure what happened to him there. Looks like he got a little loose, was able to gather it back up, and may have taken some damage and forced to retire as he drops down through the standings. And again, on that lap, coming through turn 1, Hell Corner, where there was a cloud of smoke and a few cars off and some additional tows. So we've got 2 cars who have parked it. That's Mladen and Kyriopoulos. And Barati looks like he went into the pits and is now coming out. Meanwhile, up front, it is still Preston from Ming, from Philip Vanderhert, Vitorino, Bjorklund, Sanchez, Al Amri, White, Gonzaga, and Rodriguez are going to make up your top 10 in a race that, frankly, not to disrespect any of the skill out here on this course, but way cleaner than I was anticipating as we were warming up here this afternoon.
Yeah, I was expecting some sort of pile-up. Certainly a lot more time to go in this race. We're only 2 laps going into 3 laps into this 12-lap race. So right now we're only just barely into this race. This man, Iglesias, who we were following there, involved in a heated battle there with Ma, who outbraked himself really bad there going through the chase, and that cost him dearly. So now he's going to lose a bunch of positions there. But a lot of drivers shuffling all throughout this field. I believe part of the reason why that's the case is the very strong slipstream effect that you have in these cars. These cars usually have a real heightened amount of slipstream, but at a track like this, which has really long straightaways, you just saw Vitorini go through one mountain, the mountain straight exiting turn 1. Drivers hitting the wall there, but a lot of long straightaways for these drivers to slipstream past each other. So I think that's the reason why we've seen a lot of field shuffling so far, and I think that's part of the reason why we see a lot of side-by-side action. There's certainly some side-by-side action here with Andreas Friedrich and Baba there. Baba now moves up into the 11th position. He has put on a very good drive so far.
Wow, and what a move by Baba going to the inside of turn 3. You don't see a lot of challenges for position there, but Baba knows he's got a limited amount of time here to work his way up through the field, and stuck it on the inside of 3. Friedrich, there's really nothing he could do about that but lift and let Baba through. And now we're riding along with Friedrich as he watches Baba go down the hill in front of him toward that Falcon Corner, Forest Elbow.
Falcon Corner. Some people from New York might think you're cursing there, but no, you're just reading out the sponsor name on the wall. So, anyways, before I say anything that might get me in trouble here at Apex Racing TV, we see Baba pulling out to try and get the move done on Gonzaga there as they go down the Conrad straightaway. Before they even enter the chase, Baba gets the move done and breaks into the top 10. Fantastic start from him. He started all the way down 20th. For what reason, we're not entirely sure. Might have gotten a few incident points on his qualifying times and had both of his times disallowed, but he has put together a stonking drive so far, right now up 10 positions from the 20th place start, and he is now firmly in the top 10.
Yeah, and we saw Baba start from the back last week, as I recall, and it may just be that he's chosen to start at the back of the grid to give himself some additional challenge, and he has definitely proven up to the task, Ron. As you said, up 10 positions already on a course that is very difficult to get these overtakes done. Baba showing his skill with these radicals. Meanwhile, Sanchez taking a peek inside there of Al Amri and gets that move done. Al Amri may have been spooked by Sanchez, sticking his nose in there, overcooks that entry, washes out, and Sanchez will come through to P5. Wow, what a move.
Now I'm sure Kim Andre and Björklund is going to look at these two drivers battling and think, if I just let these two drivers battle ahead of me as they go through the really tight, twisty section up towards the top of this circuit here at Man Panorama, they might crash. So I'm sure Kim Andre and Björklund is probably thinking, I'm just going to sit back, relax, have a chill-out barbecue here right behind these two drivers and wait for some kind of incident to happen, because we've definitely seen a lot of close calls all throughout this race, and certainly this section of the course is really prone to a lot of chaos. These cars are definitely on the edge coming through here. It's a puckering moments driving through those very tight and twisty corners as they go through the midsection of this circuit right before they go through Forest Elbow and go back onto the Conrad straightaway. So I think we might see some incidents there throughout the rest of this race, but certainly those two drivers, Sanchez and Alamari, even though they are very close, still very close, they managed to keep it clean. They're now extremely close as Alamari looks for the move there on Sanchez, gets the inside going into the chase, but manages to get the position there as they go onto the brakes going into the chicane, and now I believe that Sanchez is going to be at risk of losing a position to Björklund.
Yeah, and these two are not done. And Ron, you mentioned Björklund kind of taking it easy, watching the cars in front of him dicing, waiting for an opportunity. But one of the problems here at Bathurst, if there's any kind of incident in front of you, there's no runoff. There's no way to cleanly get through if the cars end up blocking the track. I've literally seen cars piled up sideways, kind of stuffed in between these concrete barriers. So Björklund might want to give that situation just a little bit of space if he believes there's going to be some argy-bargy between those two drivers to protect himself from getting caught up in the pileup.
Holy cow, I just saw a small little graphic there on the left-hand side of your screen looking over the timing tower. That was a 158.1 there, I believe, from Enrio Baba. I believe that was faster than our pole speed, so a lot of drivers going really fast, and that man, Enrio Baba, is putting together a very, very performance-driven drive. Certainly this man is probably the cream of the crop. You can see, 158.1, which was about over 3/10 of a second quicker than the man currently leading your race, Preston. So right now, Enrio Baba is a man on a mission, but I'm not sure at this point, 12 seconds back, certainly anything can happen in the second half of this race, but I believe Baba is still putting himself very decently. He could probably get a top 5 by the end of this. Where do you think, I'll ask this to you, JR, where do you think Enrio Baba can finish this race?
I like your prediction of a top 5. He has not shown any signs of slowing down, and it looks to me like the drivers that see him approaching from behind are not putting up much of a fight. They know that Baba's on a mission. Baba is definitely throwing down the gauntlet. It wouldn't surprise me to see a 157 out of him before this one's over. And my goodness, and remember, folks, Baba is P3 in the season standings, behind Friedrich at P2. And Friedrich at this point in the race, without getting into the complex math of drops and everything else, Friedrich is sitting at P13. So he's a few positions behind Baba, and Baba's not done moving up.
I'll tell you, I'll be brutally honest. Talking about Friedrich, he's had a somewhat disappointing season so far. I mean, he's still up there in the other radical points, but this man last season, he put on some pretty good drives, was definitely a force to be reckoned with at times. But so far this season, I can only count on maybe one hand the amount of times he's really been a force to be reckoned with in some of these races. So I think Friedrich has been somewhat of a disappointment all throughout the season, certainly on these Friday broadcasts here on Apex Racing TV. And if you'd like to be a part of these broadcasts, you can just join the official Radical Racing Challenge series on iRacing. Certainly if you have a C-Class and above license, you can do this, and with the other somewhat low participation that we've seen towards the end of the season, you can be in the top split, because here we only had one split, 24 drivers, certainly a packed field here with a lot of field spread. So if you want to be a part of this series, just hop onto iRacing on a Friday. I believe it's 2100 GMT, 5 p.m. EST, and I think, God, I'm not sure what that would be, West Coast time 2-1. I'm not too sure what it would be on the West Coast of the U.S., but certainly if you want to be a part of these broadcasts and drive these Radical SR10s and show off your racing skill, you know exactly what to do. And if you just want to watch these broadcasts or any of the other broadcasts we have on Apex Racing TV, you can hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell to get notified whenever we post a video or get pushed a live stream whenever you're doing it. Certainly this man, Enrio Baba, is pushing past Sanchez there. I believe, actually, no, that was White there, who he managed to get past for P8. So right now, Baba moving up another position here. He is one of the biggest field position gainers throughout this race so far, but another man who has put together a very good and very quiet drive is Mauricio Nunez W, who's currently running in the 11th position. That driver of the number 17 car has managed to gain 10 positions from the start, so he has put together a very decent drive so far. So he's, yeah, I mean, we haven't talked about him too much throughout this broadcast, but he has put together a fantastic race so far. So maybe by the end of this thing, he could break into a top 10 as well.
Yeah, he looks like he's headed that way. And my goodness, Baba now up 12 positions. And we got a little taste of this during our practice session earlier. Big draft on these cars, coming down the Conrad straight, and Baba making short work of everybody he ends up following. And just a quick shout out to the fans of Friedrich. I can hear them steaming through the internet here. He is sitting in P2 on the season, which is nothing to sneeze at. That puts him as number 2 SR10 driver in the world on the iRacing service. So he may not have been taking a lot of P1s, but he certainly had the consistency to build up a good bank of points over the season. Oh my goodness, and there's Ming. We just heard that Ming has walled it coming over Skyline, and he is out. My goodness, and how quickly Bathurst giveth and Bathurst taketh. The way you see him getting a little curb there. He's coming over Skyline now.
Whoa,
and that
yep,
curb
there you
hit,
go.
double
I did
curb
that a
hit.
lot.
And right into the outside wall there. And in the real world, the medics are on their way. That is a huge hit, 100 miles an hour plus for sure. And Ming is out of it. And that will actually move Vandenherk up to P2, Vitorino from Al Amri, Sanchez, Baba now up to P6 after getting past Bjorklund, who is sitting in P7. White, Rodriguez, and the W are your top 10. And Baba's march continues. He is now up 15 positions, and he has reached the top 5 that we were predicting with 4 laps remaining. Looking at Bjorklund now, and he's got in a line of cars with Baba, Sanchez, Bjorklund, and he's got White behind him there. They have formed up a nice little train, and with Baba leading the way, and Al Amri looks like he is about 1 second ahead of Baba, and so he will be Baba's next target as Baba works his way up through the field after qualifying, gridding up anyway in P20. My goodness, what a drive from Baba.
I was about to say, as we just saw a pass there with Sanchez and Baba, Sanchez manages to usurp Baba there as they go down the straightaway and go into Corey. Now Baba's going to look for a move again onto Sanchez as he go into turn 4. There might have been a little bit of contact there, or Sanchez just outbroked himself pretty badly. I was going to say, right as you cut back to me, all aboard the Baba train. So, anyways, terrible music skills from myself notwithstanding, Baba managed to get that position back from Sanchez, and Sanchez with that big overshoot there that when they went into the cutting, he outbroke himself pretty badly and was lucky to keep it out of the wall and lucky to hold on to that P6 position. I know Bjorklund was smelling blood there of when that mistake happened there. We're going to get a replay here to see all the drama that just happened there of that up front pack there, if I can spit my words out in the correct order. We're going to see Baba here. He went, is he going to go 3 wide into the chill? Oh my god! That is a ballsy move there from Ennio Baba. He manages to pick off 2 cars at once, going through the chase. Those 2 drivers, Sanchez and Bjorklund, had to have been thinking, what the hell did he just do? That was awesome.
Yeah, indeed. And boy, you are right about Sanchez. He had Bjorklund actually beside him there in turn 3 and 4 after Baba had stuffed his way through there. Bjorklund tried to follow, and Sanchez, I'm not sure how he was able to hold off Bjorklund. Maybe both cars kind of got loose over that bumpy quarry corner, but wow, this is tremendous. We've seen some great racing so far this season, but this may be some of the best driving that we have seen out of these Radical Racing Challenge drivers here thus far. Wow, just amazing.
That was ridiculous. That was an absolute send there. I gotta give Ennio Baba a lot of props because that move, I mean, that was just a complete send. I mean, there's nothing else you could say. That was total full commitment there, pulling that move off, and he managed to pull that move off quite nicely. I have a lot of respect that he managed to do that without hitting any of his competitors, but I'm sure he had to have been a bit jittery when he pulled that move off. So he's put together a very exciting race so far. This man has put together a very quiet race besides a slight wall tap that we saw there, I believe. I don't think he'll pick up any damage from that. This man, Corey Preston, has put together a brilliant drive right now. We're on lap 9 of 12. Thankfully, they upped this race from 11 laps last season to 12, because when I mentioned that there was 9 laps completed of 11 last year, I made a subtle 9/11 joke and I nearly got into hot water for it. But so thankfully, the people in charge of the Radical Racing Challenge upped the race distance this year, so I won't make that mistake. This man has been mistake-free, though. Corey Preston, he has put together a fantastic drive and currently leads Herc by about 2.5 seconds.
And Preston, we have not seen that I recall, but you know, when you are on your hometown track, it gets circled on your calendar. And I imagine that Preston may just show up here at Bathurst with whatever car they're going to give him, because he has dominated. He's driven out to over a 2-second gap, as you can see. He has not put down the fastest lap of the day. That still belongs to Baba at a 158.17, but he is second fastest at 158.5, and he's certainly doing a good job maintaining that gap behind to Vandenherk. And now looks like we're looking at Sanchez, White, and Bjorklund, who are still circulating together, and that draft comes up in many spots on the track, and this is certainly one of them. And we've seen a couple of folks try to stick their nose into Griffins and navigate that side by side, see if we get anything here.
So far, the drivers are remaining line astern. Baba sets another quick lap. You can see there he's set the fastest lap of the race at the other 158.1 that he set a few laps ago. I think that will stand the test of time throughout the rest of this race, because as this race develops, the fuel burns away, so these drivers are feeling the struggle there, certainly on the straightaway. They're not complaining about the less weight, but as they go through here trying to navigate the bumps and the changes of elevation, slow drops and big high points, they're certainly feeling the pain of having far less fuel to weigh that car down, and certainly the tires are definitely falling off. We didn't mention it throughout this race, but tire management is always a pretty big deal when it comes to these Radical races, but so thankfully we haven't seen too much of that, because it always is a bit annoying to see tire management play a bit of a role. Right now, these drivers are just giving it everything they have. It's just pure, good old hard racing, and you gotta enjoy having some fantastic racing all throughout the field.
And we saw the track conditions there. I will say, in regards to tire wear, these cars definitely have the tires go off in the later stages, and these drivers are fortunate to only be looking at about 80-degree Fahrenheit track temperature, which is very cool for this area, as we see almost another double move there, as looks like Bjorklund dispatched White, and now he's looking at Sanchez ahead. Bjorklund has been a very solid driver throughout the course of this series, now sitting. Oh, and he takes the jinx from JR. My goodness, I was just about to compliment him and point out he is P5 on the season, and he is going to get loose there coming onto the front straight. That is Ron's favorite corner from earlier this afternoon when we were practicing. Very tough to get the power down there. It's a little bit off camber. Tough to be consistent on your braking point there too. Overall, pretty difficult corner, and Bjorklund almost loses it. You see him get a little kiss there and maybe a little bit of damage to that front splitter, but manages to keep it moving anyway, and he'll maintain P8 after a pretty significant bobble there at the beginning of lap 11.
Tell you, from my experience having to negotiate the exiting curb there as they go out of Murray's corner, the final corner on this track, I think they should rename, just don't rename the corner, rename the curb coming out of it to the shark tooth curb, because that's my experience. It's very bumpy. You can just feel it going through the wheels. Just, you can feel it shattering the entire car. The car shakes uncontrollably when you go over the curb, which is a pretty big departure from the rest of it. I don't know if there's some kind of like glitch there with the laser scan or what, but it was really shaky when I went over that curb, and it made getting on the power really difficult. I overshot that corner quite a few times in my experience driving this car, and really, regardless of what car I drive, I tend to overshoot it. Maybe it's a skill issue from my end. Maybe it's just me in that corner are not on speaking terms. Certainly, Kim Andre and Bjorklund in that final corner of Maury's corner were not on speaking terms there. As I mentioned that it was the shark tooth curb. He got bit by it quite badly, but it hasn't cost him too badly. That was like severe contact with the wall, but he has managed to keep pace in his car, and he gets past White again there for 7th position. So right now, Kim Andre and Bjorklund, I believe he's going to have a very tough last lap on his hands to try and hold on to that position, but I think things are looking pretty good for him.
Yeah, that they have swapped a couple of times, and just looking really quickly at Baba, and yeah, I don't think he is going to make up the gap to get on the podium, but my goodness, he has risen 16 positions to P4, and barring any incidents here on the last lap, he is going to, he's got that one sewed up. Meanwhile, looking at Andreas Friedrich, he's behind nicely, and again, I will agree with you, Ron, that we're not accustomed to seeing Friedrich that far in the cellar, so currently at P13. Meanwhile, we've got Bjorklund with White sniffing around behind, and Sanchez a little bit ahead. Sanchez probably safe. Bjorklund's probably watching his rear view. White has got a 0.3 second gap behind, and here comes Corey Preston, and we've got to compliment the hometown man again. He's stretched his lead to almost 3 seconds. He's coming down Conrad straight for the last time, and he has got this win. Oh my goodness, he's got this win sewed up, and I'm not sure what happened to Rafa White there. Kind of inexplicably over Skyline. Maybe just lost grip for a moment, but he hit the left side wall there coming over Skyline. Pretty unusual. Not sure what happened with him, but he is still rolling. The car doesn't look worse for the wear. And again, here comes Preston. Mr. Preston, wow, way to show up and defend your home turf. Fantastic race from him.
Certainly, this man has put together a fantastic drive from start to finish. He's a pretty unrecognizable name. We haven't seen too much of him this season, but hopefully we will see a lot more of him now as he takes the win here. Corey Preston wins at his hometown track. We'll have to ask him, if we do get the chance to interview him, what area of Bathurst he lives in, because you think with how composed of a drive he put together tonight, he's got to live somewhere near the track to know how it is. So that man put together a very good drive. Oh, someone had a very bad corner there. Multiple drivers having a very bad corner. A lot of drivers spinning, including White there, who I believe will drop out of the top 10. A lot of cars spinning all over the place there. Not entirely sure what happened. I believe White there, actually, I do believe he took the checkered flag, so he will end up in the 8th position, just behind Kim Andre and Bjorklund. But a lot of drivers making contact there. I'm not sure what's going on. More action behind your brother there. Craig Gregory there has a bit of a moment there coming through the chase and loses that P16 position to Samuel Ma right at the last minute. So tough for him as he finishes 17th. The last of the few drivers are taking the checkered flag. These will be the last. Wallen and Bonowitz, my apologies. Bonowitz, I believe, is from my neck of the woods. I believe he's from Pennsylvania, so good for him. Unfortunately for him, he had a very bad corner coming out of the chase, so I believe that's exactly how they will finish. They will finish P18 and P19 respectively. Dennis Karakopoulos will be the last of the drivers to finish this race. He is 1 lap down in 20th, and all the drivers have taken the checkered flag now.
Wow, that was fantastic, Ron. We have seen some great racing throughout the 10 weeks of the Radical Racing Challenge here on Apex Racing TV, and that may have been the best and most exciting race that we have seen. And again, folks, this is a single split here today. If you'd like to try your hand at driving these Radicals, they are fantastic cars. For me personally, my lap times are between my GT3 and GTE times, so they are fast, fun, and will test your skills with no ABS, no TC, and you can perform here in front of your fans on Apex Racing TV every Friday. And here are our final results. Preston defending the home turf with a P1, Philip Vanderhert P2, Vitorino in 3, Baba with that incredible drive from P20 up to P4, Al Amri in 5, Sanchez, Bjorklund, White, Rodriguez, and Mauricio W. will round out your top 10. Jorge Gonzaga, Nisli Friedrich, Bobber, Hesterman, Ma, my cousin Craig Gregory, who fell into P17 there, looked like from his teammate potentially. They had matching liveries. Will end up in P17. Jim Wallen in 18. And as we scroll our results, we got Bonovitz, Kiriopoulos, Ming, Iglesias, Barati, and Mladen will round out your top 24. And we'll take a look and see if anybody is going to stop by the booth here for an interview. Meanwhile, looking ahead, next week at Interlagos, and week 12 is going to have us in Mosport, which I think will be a fantastic course for these cars, and I think it will be a course to which they're well suited. But I am getting ahead of myself. What do you think we're going to see next week, Ron, at Interlagos?
Man, it's really hard to say. These cars are I would say they're kind of an unknown quantity. They've put on some very good races when we weren't expecting it, and I'll be brutally honest and say that I'm not expecting the world's best race next time out in Interlagos. It doesn't really feel like a track that's too conducive to these cars, so we'll just have to wait and see what is. Certainly going down the start-finish straightaway, the flat-out blast when they go through the final fast couple of corners. We'll have to see how the slipstream effect could play an effect on the racing there. We'll just have to wait and see in 1 week's time how the race is in Interlagos.
Yeah, and that is a very long straightaway. It actually starts with that last slow left-hander turn 14, and it starts with a curve, but it's in effect a very, very long straightaway heading into the Senna S's. And our experience with these cars is that we're going to see a lot of drafting and a lot of overtaking, perhaps some ill-advised dives into turn 1 at Interlagos next week. And folks, remember, Apex Racing is not just about these fantastic broadcasts. Check out Apex Racing Academy. You can add that to your VRS subscriptions. We have the features that you're used to with VRS. We have one-on-one and group coaching, telemetry, setups, and track guides that will help you get those last couple of tenths out of your lap. Add Apex Racing Academy to your VRS subscription today, and keeping our eye on the last cold run through the Conrad Strait to see if we see anybody take advantage of airborne opportunities here, and nothing so far. And my goodness, so Ron, is Baba going to be your driver of the day today? I have a hard time imagining who else it could be.
I would definitely have to say Baba is my standout star tonight. Did that fantastic move that we got a chance to look at there in super slow motion, threading the needle there, getting by Sanchez. And he would definitely be my driver of the day, but I won't end this broadcast without mentioning Mauricio Nunez W., who ends up in the 10th position, gets that top 10, and manages to gain 11th positions in tonight's race. So even though Baba was definitely my driver of the day, I'm not going to slack off on him either, because he put together a fantastic drive as well.
All right. Well, I don't see anybody waiting to join us in the interview room here. Must have been something we said. But in any event, I am J.R. Gregory with a call here today at Mount Panorama. Beside me in the commentary booth, as always, racing Ron Mounds, and in the production booth, pushing your buttons and twiddling your knobs. And the fastest, sadly, of the three of us, Joshua Wilkie. And wow, what a race. And please join us next Friday at... where are we going again? Interlagos. 26th Friday.
Interlagos. Yeah, there you go.
And in the meantime, don't forget to subscribe to Apex Racing TV. We have got great races, high quality drivers, and fantastic broadcasts all week long. Hit subscribe and be sure to turn on those notifications as well so that you don't miss anything. And thank you very much. Happy Friday. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.
Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.